Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to my channel. I am really excited today because I'm joined by a beautiful, beautiful woman, inside and out, Sarah Breskman Cosme. Welcome to my channel, Sarah. It's so nice to have you today.
Thanks so much. It's so nice to be on your channel. I'm so happy to have a conversation with you.
Yeah, well, I wanted to tell everybody how we met because it's an interesting story. It wasn't like somebody kind of mutually brought us together. It was we both were at a conscious living expo in Boca early in March, and I know of Sarah because I've seen interviews with her, and I have her one of her books, and I knew who she was. And I just so happened, I think divine intervention probably, but we had a booth basically right next. Well, there was one in between us, but they didn't show up the whole weekend. So Sarah was right next to me essentially. And I saw her walk by and I told my husband, I was like, oh my God, I know her. I know her. And it was like this giddy girl, like this fangirl or whatever. Which I don't normally do, but I really genuinely like your personality and you seem so genuine and kind. And I was like, this is a real person. I really want to meet her. And so I went over. My daughter was like pushing me, go talk to her, go talk to her. And I was like, okay, calm down. And we got to talking, but it was really hard to talk because there were so many people walking by and lines of people were wanting to come up and talk to you and get your book autographed and all sorts of things. But we both agreed that that was like divine intervention there, that we were meant to meet that day. And we only met for a very brief moment, and then we really didn't see each other the rest of the weekend, but we got each other's contact information, and here we are today.
That's exciting. I know it's exciting. It was just meant to be that we would meet each other. And I so love what you do for children. That's just amazing. It's wonderful.
Oh, well, thank you, Sarah. Well, I'm sure most people know who you are, but just in case they don't, Sarah is an author of three wonderful books. We'll get into that, but she predominantly is a QHHT practitioner, master level. So she works with people all over the world, and she does QHHT sessions, just much like Dolores Cannon. And she has beautiful information on Atlantis and Lemuria and the Sphinx and another one of your recent books, I believe, goes into Native American history. Is that
Mhm.
correct?
Mhm.
Yeah. So Sarah, tell us how you got involved in all of this, and then we'll get into the meat of the interview.
Just basically from having a lot of problems myself. So going through therapy to try to fix my problems didn't really seem to work. And then finally I went to college because I wanted to become a psychologist. And going to college changed my life because I changed my environment. And by changing my environment, I changed my thought patterns. And I realized that your thoughts really do dictate your life. And that just totally changed my life. And eventually I got into hypnosis, and I started doing that for a while, but I got into all these books and this type of information completely by accident, just like everything else in my life. I wanted to take this level 3 class, the highest level. I just had always wanted to do it. And finally, it was in Florida. And so I was put on the spot and I needed somebody to regress and take this video submission right away. I mean, I didn't have time to waste. So
Yeah.
I asked one of my friends who I'd been friends with for 10 years if she would be my subject, if she wouldn't mind volunteering. I wanted to get a volunteer, not a paying client, because I didn't want someone, who paid to complain about the fact that all these people in the class would be watching this
Right.
video. So I told my friend Jen, would you mind being my volunteer? Basically, what you'd be doing is I'll regress you under hypnosis and you can find out anything you want to. You can find out who you are, your true purpose, and you can even heal yourself if you have any issues or any physical issues. And even though we were friends for 10 years and I had told her countless times basically what I did, she wasn't into it because she wasn't into that information. It was just something she just would rather not talk about. She was one of those friends, one of those friends that you don't talk about these things with. So when I asked her, she was a little bit surprised. And then she said she was looking for something like this even though we had been friends and I had brought up different things a little bit at a time, she said she had been looking for something like this just recently because she had recently been diagnosed with this brain condition called pseudotumor cerebri. And basically, she was working really closely with a team of specialists at the University of Miami. And they told her there's no cure at all for this, but you can go on these heavy duty medications and then you might have maybe 20 years, because hers was very severe and it was causing issues like there was a great risk of a stroke. She was actually losing her eyesight in one eye and she had severe headaches, and she was only about 32 and had 3 young children. So she was absolutely devastated and desperate. And she said she would definitely volunteer. You know, she didn't care what it was. She was going to be my volunteer. So and I knew her for 10 years. So I knew, because I had talked to her before the session. I said, what are your belief systems? Just so we can, I can understand before going into this.
Yeah.
And she said that she wasn't really sure if she believed in reincarnation. She wasn't really sure. She definitely didn't believe in aliens. And the closest to spirituality that she was she was just starting to get into law of attraction. That was okay for her. She believed that maybe there was this law of attraction, but that was it. That was it. So in her first session, as I bring her deep under hypnosis, she remembers pretty instantly this other lifetime, as if she's always remembered it. That's basically how everyone under hypnosis acts. Like, oh, I've always known how to power the spaceship, or, oh yeah, I remember living in this, place in the Pleiades. She remembered in so many details this ancient civilization. And she remembered just basically everything about this ancient civilization, and that she was one of the rulers in that ancient civilization. It was women led, and women were the natural leaders because they could subconsciously pass down knowledge from mother to daughter. And they never had to teach their daughters this information. It was just automatically passed down. And this valuable information was very important to the whole society. It was information basically on different plants. They could communicate with the plants, but they had a subconscious record of what plants did what, and also what plants would kill you altogether. There were not a lot of illnesses. In fact, there were hardly any illnesses, but there was a lot of pain in childbirth, or if you, with maybe like a cavity or something like that. But they had this special immunity on within their huge civilization. And then Jen, my friend, remembered that she was next in line to be the ruler, basically. And then there were these visitors that came from a different place that just showed up with this really high technology, and they were looking for something. And when they couldn't get what it was that they were looking for, they took her as a prisoner and destroyed the whole civilization. And she spent 60 years in a prison in this highly advanced place. Now, this is my friend who, first of all, did not believe in any of this stuff. And not only that, she was a teacher at the children's school, so she was also scientific. So as we started to uncover this information, we started to learn that these places she didn't call them Lemuria and she didn't call them Atlantis right away, but these places were Atlantis and Lemuria. In fact, the name that she was given for Lemuria was Aman, and then Atlantis was Atlan. And so we understood that these were Atlantis and Lemuria, and that she had spent 60 years as a prisoner in Atlantis. And I asked her higher consciousness. So part of a QHHT session is you take a person, you regress the person to the deepest level of trance, and you go through maybe a past life or in between lives or wherever their higher consciousness wants them to go, because you don't lead the client. But after you go through that portion, then you ask to speak with their higher consciousness. And that's when they can really heal themselves, and you can find out anything about themselves. So I asked her higher consciousness, why did you show her this lifetime of all lifetimes you could have shown her? And they said, that the two of us agreed before incarnating that we would come together and we would uncover all this information. We would share it with the world, that the world needs it now so badly. And then I asked, well, why does she have this brain condition? And they said the whole purpose was to act as a catalyst to get her to see me, because she wasn't into any of this stuff. She would have never agreed to do this session with me had she not had some strong motivation. And so I asked, of course, well, does she need this anymore now that we got together and we will uncover this information? And they said no. So they, all of a sudden, even during the session, she could feel it start to drain, and it continued to drain after the session. And she went back to her team of specialists. I believe it had only been a couple weeks. And she went back to the University of Miami. And when they took one look at her, they couldn't believe it. She was healed. And so after that, because she was healed, we thought, maybe there really is something to this. Maybe we really do need to uncover this information. Because just to be totally honest, I mean, when you do this work, you hear lots of great information. So what makes this information so important? And at the time, I was really uncovering so much information anyway that was so profound. And I always thought to myself, I wish people knew even a quarter of this information, because they'd be so much less worried, so much less stressed out if they knew the kind of amazing information that comes through the higher consciousness, because it's like talking to yourself, only a higher version of yourself that knows everything about yourself on the ground, you know? So we thought, well, maybe there really is something to this because of the healing, especially. And because our higher self said this is what we chose to do in this lifetime, and it was so important. So I was really curious, and I asked Jen, and she agreed. She was curious too, because she wanted to know, what is this amazing information? What is so important about this information now? So I told her higher consciousness, take her to the beginning of the story that you want us to uncover and share with the world. And like I said, I knew she didn't believe in extraterrestrials. I honestly thought that her higher consciousness was going to take her back to that lifetime in Lemuria, and we would uncover it from the beginning. And that she would share, her childhood memories, and then go all the way up to her death and really go deeper into what it was like in Atlantis. But no, our second session was not like that. Her higher consciousness took us back to another lifetime where she was an extraterrestrial crash landing on Earth for the very first time. She was a commander of a ship. And it was, at the time, I was thinking, maybe it's some mistake. I don't understand. First of all, I know she doesn't believe in extraterrestrials. What is she going to say? She already thinks I'm weird. So here she's remembering this lifetime now in so much detail. I mean, she understood why they came to Earth, why they were seeding the population. I had heard about seeding the population before from other clients. I had understood and heard that Earth was an experiment school, but I knew that Jen knew nothing about this. And all of a sudden, she's explaining things that I've known for many years and going even more in depth with concepts I had never heard before. And I thought, wow, this is so interesting. So we started uncovering all this amazing information. And it still took me a while to really listen to what the higher consciousness said, because from the get-go, they kept saying, write this down in a book, write this down in a book, and we will help you share it. We will just put you in the places that you need to go. And then this strange phenomenon started happening. And I thought it was a coincidence, just like everything else, where people that didn't know one another's came in for their sessions. This even happened before Jen, and I didn't put two and two together. And they would regress and go back to time periods in Atlantis, right before the end times in Atlantis, or Lemuria. Now, I just thought maybe this is something that all QHHT practitioners were experiencing, because I thought they're either going to Atlantis, Lemuria, or they're an extraterrestrial crash landing their ship. This is just really interesting how all QHHT sessions lead here. So I was asking around to other people that do this modality as well, and they kept saying, no, this isn't what they're noticing whatsoever. And like I said before, you don't lead a person. So I never said to any of my clients, all right, go to the last time period in Atlantis, go to the last time period in Lemuria. It was never like that. So the fact that these people who didn't know one another were coming in for their sessions all right around the same time too, and sharing this information, I began to fully understand. And there was no question in my mind, okay, this information is important. Okay, I will write this in a book. So I collected the information, and that's basically how I wrote my first book, A Hypnotist's Journey to Atlantis. Now, granted, I published it in December of 2020 before things really started coming out, like before you know, the election, before the jab and stuff like that. So it was really interesting because the stuff started coming out way before, even in 2016. And the higher consciousness just wanted us to get this information because, like they had said so many times, we're coming back full circle. So time is so fluid. It's all happening in this now moment. So everything that has ever happened and everything that will happen is kind of happening all at once. And time is almost like a spiral. So we can hit different points of time during certain cycles, if that makes sense. Humanity doesn't evolve in one straight line. It evolves in cycles. And the fact that we're hitting this point again in this moment is great. And what the higher consciousness says is that now we're moving past this point. So basically, a lot of us are being triggered. And the reason we're being triggered is to release this trauma once and for all and to move past this. And we've tried before, but this is the time where we're prophesized to really get it.
I would I love this conversation, Sarah, because a lot of what you said, everybody has their way of getting information through their sessions, and you said something really specific that hits home for me because I've been told, we're coming full circle. For years, I started saying this during the pandemic period where everyone was online and doing research, and that's when I started coming out and doing interviews and talking about my work. And I kept getting there, we're coming full circle. And I seem to attract all the Lemurians because I myself had life in Lemuria. I was a midwife, and there's a lot of other information with that. But they kept telling me that you're going to attract a lot of the Lemurians, and we're coming full circle. This is our opportunity to make change, and it is cyclical, and we are reaching a pivotal marking point where people are being activated and remembering. Because I believe that a lot of people incarnated right now are Lemurian, are Atlantean, or both. Because it's all happening simultaneously, and what happens here affects there. And I had some really profound sessions recently where Lemurians came through or Atlanteans came through, and they were saying how excited they were that we are shifting things here. They could feel it there and vice versa. And we're really making headway. And it's so exciting because we know the momentum is there and we can feel it, but not everybody, it's not apparent to everybody. So there's a lot of non-believers out there, but you and I are going to attract, of course, the people who are open and ready. And I resonate so much with the illness because I think that everyone has a catalyst for their awakening. Sometimes they choose something really rough, like an illness or cancer or a near-death experience. But some people, like, I never had that, but my catalyst to my awakening were my children. They woke me right up, and each one did something more for me. So everybody has their way of waking up, but a lot of the dis-ease or illnesses that we have are those catalysts for us to seek alternative healing. And then that leads to so many other things. And so I love all the things that we're talking about right now. And your experience with Jen was obviously a soul contract. And I think that we really are shifting the timelines now, which are affecting then. And it's a beautiful opportunity for change and transformation right now. So this is wonderful. Do you want to go into your experience? Because through your work, through another opportunity where you regressed as part of your, I think it was your mastership, or I can't remember exactly what it was for, where you agreed and then you learned about how you were a judge in Atlantis. And I think this story is fascinating. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Was part of the classes. I was working and assisting or teaching and assisting Julia Cannon, Dolores Cannon's daughter, all over the world for a while before the quarantine. And I was assisting her and teaching this class in Miami. And as part of the classes, people would practice on me. I don't know why always me, but they always practice on me in front of the class. And they still do this at their reunion, but it's fine. It's interesting and actually really healing for me whenever we do this. But someone had to someone had to do it, so they regressed me in front of the class and one of the students. And instantly I remembered this lifetime in Atlantis. And it was funny because I always wondered if I had a part in this story, because sometimes some things would make me feel I just kind of felt would I've always felt a certain um kind of like upset about when people label other people as disabled, especially with autism or ADHD. It would bother me because I think I've always known that these weren't disabilities. And it was really interesting in my session where I really got to understand that I had such a huge part in this society because I was a judge in that society. And my role was basically to decide who would stay and who would go. Um, in Atlantis, as horrible as that is to say, that was my job. And basically there were a lot of issues that were happening in Atlantis. And there was a lot of altering of the DNA, and that would produce different side effects. So people would have different animalistic side effects because there was a lot of genetic tampering with the animal DNA, and it seemed to be working well until the first set of babies started being born with these horrible side effects. And so if there was a lot of violence running through that person and they weren't able to fit into society, they were sent to this island, which that's what we were told as judges. This island would be where they would get medical treatment and they'd be taken care of. That's what I was told. I didn't know, and I came to find out later that they were all being killed. And many people remembered their children being taken away from them that had these side effects, and they never knew exactly what happened to them. And basically, um, they were using this technology that basically dehydrate them to the point where there was nothing left. It was dust. So I spent many, many years deciding who would stay in this society and who would go because there was a huge problem during this time. This is almost towards the end of Atlantis, because the overall issue really was that everything was out of balance. There was too much of this masculine greed energy and hardly any feminine energy. Everything was so polarized in that way. And everything was just completely out of balance. And I wanted to see this island. I wanted to make sure that this is really what I was sending these people to, eventually later on in my career. And when I got there, I didn't see any people. All I saw was dust. And it was then that I realized I'd just been lied to. So I came back wanting to share as much information as I could and instantly just shut down, basically. Eventually, I died of a heart attack just because I was so upset. And I know it's one of the reasons why, I'm back here again, just to share this information. I've been told by the higher consciousness, I've basically done this so many times. I've written this same book over and over and over again many times. And it makes sense why I'm so passionate about sharing this information so people can understand what happened or what they can do and our history and how we can learn from all of this. But it's really interesting when you get to kind of understand history in a better way, because I remember my session and I remember the luxurious parties that I went to in Atlantis. And I remember walking around the inner ring. It took about 3 hours to walk around. I remember the best thing about the memories of Atlantis, to be honest, were my sandals because they would push on all the points of my foot, and I could just basically almost like glide when I was walking, and there was no discomfort in my body. And I was an older gentleman. I was very, just I'm sure I never worked out type of person, just older. I had issues with my joints. So these sandals are just absolutely amazing. It's one of the things I still think about from my session. But you said that you remember living in Lemuria, and there's so many people here now that are basically trying to reunite with their tribe again, because Lemuria was so beautiful, so full of compassion, and it was just such a beautiful society. And it seems like a lot of people that really resonate with their memories from Lemuria follow kind of like a plant-based diet. They are more in tune with the Mother Earth, more in tune with plants and nature. You can kind of tell which one you sort of resonate with, or where you might have spent more lifetimes on, because it seems like people from Lemuria, they usually are like that. They're full of compassion. They don't understand violence. And then Atlanteans are usually like the first one to get the new iPhone. They're very, love
It's so
anything that has
funny
to
you
do
say
with technology.
that.
But
I'm
of course,
laughing
people
because my
lived
husband
multiple
is,
lives in many
yeah,
places. What did you
yeah,
say?
my husband is Atlantean. I don't feel a connection
I
at
can't
all to
hear
Atlantis.
you.
You can hear me now? Oh, that's weird. Hold on. So I was laughing because I really don't feel resonance with Atlantis at all. I never have. I'm very connected to Lemuria, and it's evident, I think, in my personality. But my husband is very Atlantean, and he is all about technology, and we butt heads about it. Like he's like, I want everything technology. And I'm like, get that out of my house. And we butt heads about it a lot. And I think that's so funny. But we can see the parallels in our life as that connects with our past life. And I think a lot of Lemurians and Atlanteans here right now are here to be of service in some way. I was a midwife in Lemuria, and it's no coincidence that I did hypnobirthing here, and I was passionate about helping women have natural childbirth in this life. When I was like 8 years old, I saw a movie and I told my mom I wanted to like, deliver babies because it was inspiring to me, and I never knew why it really affected me at such a young age. I'm also terrified of the ocean and waves, even small waves. It gives me anxiety, and now I know why. So we're starting to learn these things about ourselves, and I think it's happening all over the world. And for me, when I did hypnosis, I thought I was going to be cool like Dolores Cannon because I do transpersonal hypnotherapy because of my hypno birthing training. And I thought, oh, I'm going to talk to people and learn about their cool stories and ETs and all of this. And I was so bummed because that never happened for me. But what ended up happening, and obviously I know it wasn't an accident because that wasn't what I was meant to do. But I was working with starseed children, and all of the starseed children started coming through, and I learned an abundance about starseeds, and it opened up a whole channel of information for me that led to different types of sessions that I do now instead of hypnosis. I was wondering, Sarah, what information are you getting about New Earth children or star seeds or whatever term that comes through for you and in your sessions?
Well, I've been hearing that they're a totally different race. Basically, they're not like us at all. They're totally different. They have so many more abilities. They're really here to change the world. It's amazing because even my son's friends, I mean, my son and his friends, they're so different. They're 9. And the older teenagers also are different than like my generation. But the younger generation, I mean, if you don't have hope, just look around at the younger generation. They know everything. I mean, some of my son's friends would just point to a star and say, "Oh, that's where I come from."
Wow.
Like, wow, it's amazing. I mean, and it's funny. I always thought that it was my job to tell my kids some of this information that I've been receiving, and they already know it. They are always saying to me, "Oh, yeah, we already know this stuff." Like, that's so basic. It's really
It's so basic.
amazing and mind-blowing to me. I mean, um, my kids already knew about the what was happening with quarantine before it happened. In fact, my middle son said he already knew about it. But part of the reason was because he saw it in a movie called Isle of Dogs, and it was a cartoon. And so he knew exactly what was happening, which was fascinating. But he just kind of trusted himself. He knew the stories behind it. But I find it really interesting, and I think we're slowly starting to understand these, disabilities, and understanding there's something to it, because you can see in our society, if you just look at the savants, there's something that they have that's different than other people, where they can remember so many things. There's a channel opened in their mind that not everybody has. Just like ADHD, these kids can actually think greater. So like the teacher will say to the children, I want you to talk about this box, in the classroom, this box. But a child with ADHD can think greater than the box. They can see around the box. They know what's in the box. They just don't, they flow with more thought than people without this, quote unquote disability. And then dyslexia is an ability, and then also astigmatism, where you can see into different dimensions. All these things that we've been told are disabilities are actually abilities, and it's really interesting. And even back in the time of Atlantis, this was the case. We didn't really understand this, and I think we're slowly starting to see this. But as far as the new children and having hope for what's to come, I have a lot of hope, just even if you were to base it on these beautiful children coming in now, with just this different race of children that know so many different things that we don't really even understand.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they're our greatest teachers. They definitely chose the parents that they're with. We can tell that a lot, and they really are here to activate us, to help us, to push us to breaking some of us out of those paradigms or programs or those boxes. Every people that know me well know that one of my biggest missions in this life is to delabel the children. I have a big problem with that. I've been talking about this. I've been talking about it publicly for quite some time now, and I think that it was a way for this matrix of negativity to suppress these children's gifts as an
Yeah.
excuse to label them and then medicate them for it, and separate them from the other children. But our parents are waking up, and they're not buying into it anymore, and we're speaking out about it. And I think that it helps a lot to educate people and say, no, my daughter, my son, he's fine. They're very multidimensional. They can think faster. They process information more quickly. They can tap into other dimensions. They are just so much more versatile. They're just their abundance of knowledge that comes through is just breathtaking. And I think people have a hard time seeing that for what it is, as opposed to, okay, wait, this is something's not right here, and it's my passion in this life. And I honor your passion too, in helping the collective awaken to their memories, because I think this is really important right now. And one of the things that you talked about is the virus that was in Atlantis, that I thought, gosh, what a huge synchronicity in our time right now, because towards the Atlantis that I do know about was beautiful, just like Lemuria. And I think I saw you do an interview once with somebody that you said, I think I was meant to report on the end of Lemuria, when the downfall. Because the memories that I have of Lemuria and the clients that I work with, it was very patriarchal, beautiful, spiritual. But then we have this end time where it was nothing like that, like you mentioned. And I think that the
I know, I
Atlantean,
was just
let's
thinking
just
that.
say that, was a very interesting parallel to what we have now. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So the illness that was happening in Atlantis was really interesting, because when people would remember Atlantis during closer to the end times, they would always remember this big smog. I mean, the smog would basically cover the sky, so you couldn't really see the sun, and it was hazy. And at first I thought maybe that was because of their technology, but it wasn't. It was because they were burning bodies because of the illness. I think it's safer to call it an illness so you don't get your video taken down.
Oh, right.
The illness was
Illness.
wreaking havoc. And but the Lemurians had this immunity, because it was given to them from the star people. Basically, it was a gift. And like I said, they wouldn't get sick. And that's what the Atlanteans wanted, because they had, they had a lot of technology. They were able to heal many different things. They were trying to eradicate this illness with things, with things. And they just it didn't seem to work very well for them, for their society. In fact, they thought they were eradicating the illness with these things, but it caused a lot of side effects.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, just everybody listening to this can see the parallel of what we're talking about and where we are now. I mean, we're in a huge integral part of our transformation process, and it could have gone one way or the other. And I believe that the trajectory is moving forward in a positive way. And I have such high hopes for the future, and because I see it through my sessions, and I know that you do as well. And I wanted to get your take on what you see coming in the future. And because I always tell people, I don't go by dates or what truthers are saying or any books that I've read. Everything that I truly feel in my heart, I've received through my higher self, which which is the most important, I think, for everybody, to really go within and see what information comes through, as opposed to trying to get your truth through other people's kind of their preaching. But I think right now, for me, for the proof that I have, or the validation that I have, comes through the children, because I know, and I have been told repeatedly, that the children wouldn't be coming through right now in this incarnation if humanity wasn't ready, if we weren't making huge progress, because they don't want to come in and repeat this and have the same things repeat again. They don't want to be a part of that destruction. They want to be a part of the rebirth. So for me, I see all these beautiful children every single day, and I say, yes, that's our sign that things are moving forward in a positive way, even if we don't see it physically as much as we would like to. What do you feel about what's coming, and kind of what's your validation?
I love that you say that, because that's what I've been hearing too. And we're all back again now to do this differently. Basically, what I've been hearing is that there's so much frequency in this beautiful light hitting the planet right now that, I mean, it's been prophesized, and so many countless higher consciousness are talking about us evolving. We're all evolving collectively. Everything in the universe is evolving. It's going to be slow. It's not going to be overnight, but we're in the process now, and everything is definitely right on track according to the higher consciousness. Basically, they describe it as like we are on a trajectory of other Earth-like planets. There's many other Earth-like planets, not just this one. And right now, what is happening is this planet is being bathed in this higher frequency. Eventually, we will become more of a light planet where, negativity, like the kind of negativity we have right now, just can't withstand itself on this planet, because as it becomes more light, the negativity just wouldn't have anything to feed on. So would it go into a different part of the universe where there's another planet that's more dualistic? But this is what's happening. There's parts of the earth that still have a great amount of this negativity, but what we're doing is we're releasing our trauma, becoming lighter. And as we become lighter and the earth becomes lighter, it becomes more of a lighter planet. And there's nothing really that anybody even has to do. I mean, there's no rush to do this, because this is happening anyway. The planet is becoming a lighter planet no matter what. And we're moving up just as other planets have done in the past, and becoming a light planet. And in the future, it will be a light planet no matter what happens on this timeline trajectory, according to the higher consciousness. Although we have had other trajectories, other timelines where we've destroyed ourselves multiple times, not just, in Atlantis, but destroyed our planet. There's some people that actually remember other timelines where our planet was destroyed, and basically this universe is a self-correcting universe, so it would just make another planet. It's really interesting when you really get into more of these concepts, because it really just shows that basically we're all each the creator of our own realities, so to speak. and things change. Time is fluid, and we're all, in this moment right now, all with one focus, and that is unity consciousness. We're all here to achieve this unity consciousness and this evolution, basically, of this planet.
And that was said beautifully. I mean, we're all co-creators and our own architects. And, my first book was inspired, Intuitive Transformation Evolution was inspired simply to teach and coach and guide people that our emotions do affect our wellness, and we have more control than we recognize, and the relationship between energy and our emotions and our thought and our health and our well-being and balance and all of that. And I think that this is a big learning curve for a lot of people right now, to wake up out of their programming and recognize I am in control. My thoughts do dictate my reality, and where you focus your energy on really does matter. And when people say, oh, it's just me, Sherri, I live alone in my apartment, I have no family, no children, no friends, how can I help? And I'm like, you can help. It's your energy, it's your soul signature, you're part of the collective, and you do matter, and your thoughts do co-create our reality. And if we all were focusing on the positive and what we want this world to be, as opposed to the negative and what we don't like or what we don't have, then we'll just perpetuate. And I think there are a lot of people that perhaps have reincarnated from those timelines where they were just gone, because they're like, all right, well, we know it doesn't work, let's do something different this time, right? So I love the energy of all of this. I just feel like people need to just recognize their power, how powerful each one of us really are.
It's interesting because when I talk to the higher consciousness and I ask, how can everyone help? I mean, what can a person do really? What can one person do? And they say all the time, the most important thing somebody can do is to work on themselves. Because basically, when you leave your life, most people leave with little left behind. But when you work on becoming your own master, when you really become a spiritual master, what people don't understand is this leaves a powerful imprint into the consciousness. So if you think, oh, I'm all alone, I really can't do anything. Yes, you can. You can make a huge difference by becoming a spiritual master, because this imprint never is destroyed and anyone can use it. So Jesus and Buddha and people like that have done that, and anyone can tap into this energy. And one of the most important things, like I said, is working on yourself. That's the one thing that really is a game changer. I mean, yes, it's so important. We all come here to help others, but we really came here to master ourselves.
I love that, Sarah. Well, I know that you we're getting to the time where you need to go, but can you tell everybody first what your three books are, where they can get them, and is there anything in the works right now that you're working on?
I'm working on book 4, and it's, like all these other books, I have no idea what the higher consciousness is going to share with me. I feel so lucky that I get to be a part of this, because I learned so much. It's very mind-blowing to me. In fact, I'm having trouble even just grasping these concepts. But my first book is A Hypnotist Journey to Atlantis. Then I have A Hypnotist Journey to the Secrets of the Sphinx, and A Hypnotist Journey from the Trail to the Star People. And you can get all of this on Amazon. And you can go to my website, theholistichuhypnotist.com. And I have, events coming up in the future. I'm all booked for sessions right now, but hopefully in the next couple months, I'll try to be putting some more on my website.
Okay, perfect. Well, I'll put all of your links in the description box below, so they'll be able to find all of that with ease. And I enjoyed this conversation more than you know. This is right up my alley, and it's nice to talk to someone else that's like open to this conversation, this type of information. And I know that most of the people watching this will be open to it as well. So I really thank you for joining me today. Is there anything you want to leave the audience with? Any last words or anything that you want to tell everybody to encourage them right now? I know there's so much negativity, so I try to bring as much positive as I can. What can we end this with on a positive note?
Well, really, the negativity serves a purpose in the grand scheme of things. We would never grow without it. And a lot of times we have negative people in our life, and their sole purpose is to help us grow. I mean, not their sole purpose, but their sole purpose in relationship to us. But I would just say that, there's no rush. you can't get it wrong. You can't mess up your life. It's all a learning experience. When you get to the end of your life and you go back to the in-between, you know everything already. So basically you forget everything to have this experience. You forget it to remember, basically, but there's no messing it up.
I love that, Sarah. I think that's perfect and a great way to end our conversation today. So thank you so much for joining. And I hope that this interview has found everyone well that's watching it today. Until next time, bye everybody. Have a great day.
Bye.